Met het project FACET hebben wij ondernemers gestimuleerd in de vrije tijdssector om circulair te ondernemen. In de huidige wereld moeten we gewoon verduurzamen, moeten we circulair ondernemen en zeker in de vrije tijdssector. Daar hebben we ook te maken met een kortere cyclus. Denk aan de bouwprojecten, objecten gaan gewoon korter mee. Daarnaast hebben we gewoon veel toerisme, waardoor die druk op grondstoffen alleen maar groter wordt. Door circulair te ondernemen denk je ook echt na over wat moet ik gebruiken, moet ik iets echt gebruiken en wat ik gebruik, kan ik het hergebruiken. Ik kan zeggen dat ik oprecht trots ben op wat we de afgelopen 3 jaar binnen het project FACET hebben gedaan. Wat we bereikt hebben om samen die transitie naar een circulaire economie te bevorderen. Met ondernemers die pilots hebben gedaan. We hebben gesproken met lokale overheden, met financiële partijen. Dat geeft echt vertrouwen voor de toekomst.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the digital event of FACET, which I humbly remind you stands for Facilitating the Adoption of Circular Entrepreneurship in the Tourism and Leisure Sector. Now, if you think that's a mouthful, well, you're right, it is. But not to worry, today's session will be all about unpacking this in more detail. My name is Lucien von Schomberg, and I have the pleasure of hosting you this afternoon. Thankfully, I won't be here by myself. I'll be joined by a lot of variety of different people here today, both digitally and physically, including those sitting here at the table right now with me. I've got Helen Roskamp from Impuls Zeeland. I've got Margot Tempelman from the University of Applied Sciences, not too far away. Angelo Sciacca, a little bit further away, coming from the University of Greenwich in London. And from Belgium, we have Avi van Schorissen from Westoer. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you here. Of course, the binding topic, or what binds FACET, is the topic of circularity. But what is circularity? Why is it so important? And I would actually like to start with the first question, and I would like to pose it to you. How would you define circularity?
Well, thank you, Lucien. Well, first of all, I used to think that if I spoke about circularity, then it was all about recycling, about separating my waste. But it's actually so much more. It's about rethinking your entire process. So do I actually need to use this source? And if I do use it, how can I use it in a way that it becomes circular? So let's waste become a source instead of just staying waste.
Okay, great. I think that's a great departing definition for today's session. Which brings me to the next question, which I would like to pose to you, Margot. Why is circularity so important, particularly for the tourist sector?
Well, tourism is a very large sector, industry, and it's growing continuously. Also in the next years, and it will grow and grow. So when we all want to be better or use better sources, but also looking into the future of a better world and a more sustainable world, I think it's very important that we as an industry work on that topic and make, well, a better world we all want to make, and the tourism industry also wants it. And but it asks something from the entrepreneurs and from everyone who is working in this, and that is new strategies, new thinking about how do I develop as an entrepreneur and what are my possibilities, and all those questions are asked here in this project, but also important to implement it later, because now we have all sorts of ideas and also pilots. But we wanted to do that to be implemented in the whole sector. So that's one. On the other hand, it is very important because the customer also asks for new services and products. And they don't want to have the old products. They also want to have a better future and more sustainable products. So I think good stewardship, that's what we like to do in our sector. And that's also the importance.
Yeah, fantastic. All for a better world, for a better future.
Yes.
Which brings me again back to you, Helen. Speaking of FACET, how did this project emerge? Why was it so urgent for FACET to emerge?
Yeah, so if we speak about this better world and creating it, there's a sense of urgency, of course. And then I guess it was like 5, 6 years ago that we started this project, which was all about circular building. And then only for campsites. So what we did is we hired those experts and they helped entrepreneurs to design a circular building. So instead of just buying a new camping of a mobile home, just design something circular. And this was a success, and it was the start of a circularity introduction. And then what we noticed was an increasing demand, not only from campsites, but also from other players in the tourism sector. So from a day attraction, from hotels, from restaurants. And not only on circular building, but also on the other topics of circularity. So like energy, like water, like packaging, and joint purchasing together. So that's why we thought it would be a good next step is to introduce this new project together with other players in the tourism sector, in the 2Cs area. And that's how FACET was born.
Great, that's a lot of things in there. Maybe to follow up, what is examples of or what did you do concretely in this project?
So the last 3 years we were with 8 project partners, and what we did is we had a variety of pilots, not only pilots which has been done by project partners themselves, but in the Belgium and Netherlands, for example, we also have had a lot of pilots for entrepreneurs who could hire an external expert to guide them. And then next, we also did some research into, for example, the motivation of entrepreneurs. We developed several tools to support the entrepreneur in their transition to a circular economy. And then, also we had this very interesting discussions with regulatory and financial stakeholders in how can they support the transition to a circular economy. So a lot of things have been done.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, so stakeholders, external stakeholders, the entrepreneurs themselves, tools to support them. I guess the list is long and it will continue to grow, I think, as we continue today's session. Which in a way already brings us to the next item of today, namely circular entrepreneurship, particularly at Benieuwd in France. And I would like to introduce Eliane Métro and Manon Tailbois on behalf of our French partner in ADEME. And they will explain the topic of TTE, which is territorial touristic ecology, and they will explain this systematically and how they actually implemented this in Bois de Somme. And they will do that on behalf or on the basis of a video followed by a presentation. And I would like to share the video with you now.
So good afternoon, I am Eliane Métro, working in ADEME, the French Agency for Ecological Transition. We work in the regional division of Hauts-de-France. For my part, I work more especially on climate resilience and sustainable food.
Good afternoon, I am Manon Tailbois from Inextenso Innovation Croissance, which is a consulting firm specialized in sustainable innovation. And we work with ADEME on the FACET project, together with Ecopal, which is specialized in industrial territorial ecology.
Before we start, we will have a short video on the pilot project of ADEME. The pilot project of ADEME is called Tricoquille. It is the reuse of shell waste in the touristic sector in the region of Baie-de-Somme.
Avec le projet Tricoquille, la communauté d'agglomération de Baie-de-Somme a décidé de travailler avec un certain nombre de restaurants volontaires pour récupérer les déchets de moules et ensuite les traiter, les valoriser. Et on travaille avec l'ADEME et avec le projet européen FACET à voir comment est-ce qu'on peut les recycler dans le secteur du tourisme, par exemple en produisant des outils tels que des tables, des tabourets ou pour en faire, pourquoi pas, des revêtements de sol pour des pistes cyclables ou de la signalétique. Là, la collectivité a utilisé les déchets de moules pour construire des bacs à marée qui visent à sensibiliser les touristes à la pollution maritime. En effet, les promeneurs vont être invités à ramasser tout au long de la côte le plastique qu'on trouve dans la laisse de mer et à venir les déposer dans ces bacs. Alors on voit que Tricoquille, c'est un exemple typique de projet de boucle d'économie circulaire dans le secteur du tourisme. D'abord parce que les déchets des uns deviennent les matières premières des autres, mais aussi parce qu'il y a un certain nombre d'acteurs différents qui coopèrent tout au long de la chaîne de valeur touristique. Les restaurateurs d'une part, la collectivité, l'industrie qui va transformer les déchets et puis en bout de chaîne, les opérateurs touristiques.
So the video has just presented the concept, the idea of TTE, which is a territorial touristic ecology, and it's a concept which is inspired by the concept of territorial industrial ecology that has been developed in France, and in particular in the north of France since 2015. So it's based on gathering touristic actors of a same territory together to find a common solution to their needs and their problem while reducing their impact on the environment. So it means optimizing the resource of a given territory, mimicking natural ecosystem, pooling resources between players. So there are many possibilities to develop TTE projects, and so far all those possibilities have been little developed by touristic players who are more often competitors than partners. So how do we define TTE to get into details? So first we ask ourselves the question, on this project, do you have a sharing, a pooling between actors on resources, on services or materials? If yes, is this pooling, this sharing of a resource, reducing the impact of on the environment? And the third question you need to ask to yourself is, are actors of the touristic value chain involved in the project? So if you answer yes to the three questions, so it is indeed a touristic territorial ecology project. So you have different type of project. You have a substitution. It means that the waste of an actor becomes a resource for another actor. This is the case of our project in Tricoquis. You have also the sharing of resource of services, like joint purchase of green energy, for example. And you have innovative activities which go beyond substitution or mutualization synergy by creating circular economy loops between actors in the tourism value chain.
As Eliane just presented, there are three categories of action that can be categorized as TTE projects. One example of substitution of resources is Apidrech, which is an appetizer company which is using Spain grain, so the residual waste from beer production, to make appetizer by dehydrating them and transforming them. One example of mutualization of resources or services is part of our project pilot Tricoquis. So when restaurants share mussel waste collection services with the Betsam community. And finally, one example of innovative activity is Ethnici, that developed a process of shell waste transformation into tiles that can be used for coastal landscaping, for example. I just presented action from TTE project that can be categorized into different types of TTE action. Now I will present some TTE project to illustrate the concept as a whole. So these two projects are supported by ADEME in their development. The Bon Vent project aims to facilitate the dismantling of boats and the reuse of spare parts at a reasonable cost, while offering a solution to the problems of transporting used boats and animating a community for boat users, connecting them with key services. In doing that, it covers both the substitution part of TTE and the mutualization of resources. Indeed, regarding the substitution, Bon Vent aims to provide access to second-hand alternatives for spare parts, avoiding the purchase of new parts. And regarding mutualization, Bon Vent provides a shared solution for both owners, generating a pooling of knowledge and information in a single platform and allowing access to more responsible alternatives for the replacement of parts. The second example is the bike sharing services provided by the territory of the community of agglomeration of Béthune, Bruay, Artois, Lys Romane, so the Cabaler. It's a planned project on to developing a bike sharing service within the community and to use reused or recycled elements present on the territory to supply it in a bicycle and accessories for the cycle tourism. It covers both substitution and sharing of resources, as regarding substitution, they are using second-hand bikes for the sharing services and building equipment from reused or recycled materials, as for example, using feed fences as bike racks. And regarding mutualization, they offer a shared bike service on the territory. Another example of a TTE project is by the Dunkerque Dunes de Flandre Tourist and Convention Offices, in which they have manufactured equipment, furniture and lunchbox from used wooden pallet in collaboration with actors from the social and solidarity economy. So as you can see on the slide, they made both the lunchbox, furniture, and bicycle parking fences using the pallets. In doing so, they are engaging in substitution activities by the use of the non-returnable pallets and other materials considered as waste as raw material to manufacture new products. Okay. As part of the FACET project, ADEME supported the Tricoquille pilot project that I will now present you in more details. You've seen an introduction to the project in the video at the beginning. So Tricoquille is a project initiated by the agglomeration community of the Baie-de-Somme. It is aimed at collecting shellfish waste from restaurants in the Baie-de-Somme to recycle it locally into various products, particularly for the tourism sector. It started from the observation that restaurants and campgrounds generate up to 688 tons of shells per year, and 79% of which are mussel shells. These shells are currently collected and treated as residual household waste, so incineration and landfill, and it generating a significant waste management cost for restaurateur from the professional special tax. So as you can see on the presentation, it is a linear process. From that initial diagnostic, Tricoquille pilot project is working on the creation of a process and a local unit for the recovery of mussel and scallop shells as part of the circular economy. So as you can see here, the project is to collect the shell waste and to deposit it on a local recovery unit, thus creating jobs from the treatment of the waste and the transformation of the material via a special recovery process so that it can be made into new product as beach waste bins, for example, or coastal landscaping. In that way, the shell waste will not end in landfill and be valorized for a second circular life. So Tricoquille, to go more into details of the project, it offers a solution for collecting shells from restaurateurs by providing them with kits, including collecting buckets, as you can see on the slide, for customer, and educational placemats. A full-scale test was carried out in 2019, and the collection was organized by cabs with 7 restaurants in the Baie-de-Somme. About 15 tons were collected during that pilot and sent to a Lille company to transform the shells into tight tanks, which were then placed on the coast of the Baie-de-Somme, which are the ones that you saw at the beginning in the video with Eliane. The shells can also be transformed into furniture, mulch for hiking trails, or used into animal feed because of their high calcium content. So in doing so, it is taking part into substitution, mutualization, and innovative action of TTE. Regarding substitution, it's by the use of shells as raw material to manufacture new products. Regarding mutualization, it's through the pooled collection of shells from restaurants in the same area. And regarding innovative activity, it's through the creation of a circular economy loop through which products made from the shells can be used in the tourism sector. In addition to the project in Baie-de-Somme, the FACET project facilitated the creation of links between other actors of the Hauts-de-France region and enabled the collection and recovery of oyster shells from the Dunkerque Oyster Festival. The Dunkerque Oyster Festival is organized every year at the end of September or early October by the association La Bouée Bleue. It generates approximately 8 tons of shells every year. And in 2022, the FACET project brought together the Great Dunkerque Council, La Bouée Bleue, and Écailles de Mer, and led to the collection of oyster shells generated at the festival. These oyster shells were separated from the rest of the waste generated at the event, and they were collected by the waste services of the Greater Dunkerque Council and sent to recovery at Écailles de Mer. So it's another example of this TTE project. I will now give back the floor to Eliane to present the TTE guide ADEM is developing.
So we have learned a lot from those pilot projects and from those experience, and we'd like to put into value all this experience. And we are actually drafting a guide on TTE project. So this guide will put into value those best practice examples from France, from Hauts-de-France, but also from the other country involved in FACET, and it should be finalized in January. So there will be several sections in this guide, how to involve stakeholders, how to establish a governance, how to finance and define a business model, how to deploy and facilitate the project, how to disseminate and evaluate the project, especially on the environmental aspects. So here you have an example of a section, for example, and what type of information you will get in a section. Regarding financing, for example, we will see why, looking at this aspect, who to involve from the financial institution to the crowdfunding platform. We will provide some example of innovative TTE project financing. And also, we will provide some resources if you'd like to go further, get more information, and highlights also the pitfalls to avoid. Thank you very much for your attention, and please do not hesitate to contact me. My email is there if you need any more information on TTE projects.
Welcome back, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Eliane and Manon for their in-depth presentation, insightful presentation, and at the same time remind you viewers at home that we have the pleasure of having both Eliane and Manon in the chat, in the live stream. So if you have any questions about their presentation, please do post them and they'll be happy to respond. And while you do so, I would like to move on to the next item, specifically the item of entrepreneurial motivation to become circular. Because of course, circularity takes an effort, and this effort requires motivation. And a huge part of the project of FACET was all about researching, well, what exactly motivates this motivation, or what exactly motivates entrepreneurs to engage in circular solutions. And before we go into a discussion on this topic, I would like to share a video from our partner at the University of Greenwich, Jin Chan. And I would like to share that video now.
I'm Dr. Jin Chan, Associate Professor of Sustainable Strategy, Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Greenwich Business School, the University of Greenwich. The University of Greenwich is a knowledge partner in FACET. We have expertise in sustainable transitions and entrepreneurship, helping organizations and entrepreneurs to move away from business as usual practices to a more sustainable and circular operation. We have designed and conducted an online survey to understand the motivation and the challenges faced by tourism SME in their circular transitions. We work together with other FACET partners to explore potential ideas and circular solutions for tourism SME. We develop suitable tools, models, and frameworks which are useful for them in their journey to become more circular. We then derive a program to capture their experience during the implementation of circular pilots, synthesizing the knowledge gained in these FACET experiments and to share it with the wider global communities. We look forward to share this experience and to work together with new partners with sustainability, net zero, or circular agenda. Thank you.
So we just saw a video of Dr. Jin Chan, who's also with us here in, well, I should say here in the studio, but digitally. And we will go back to Jin in a second towards the end of this particular item. I would also like to welcome Arjen, who is here physically. Arjen from the Paardenkreek, an entrepreneur who himself also had to have a lot of motivation to engage. And I will come back to you as well to ask about this in a little bit more detail. But first, I would actually like to go to Angelo. Angelo, you have some findings regarding the benefits and barriers of, well, circular entrepreneurship, and I would like to ask you to share these.
Thank you very much. Yes, first of all, let me say that it's a pleasure to be here today and be talking about this exciting project. And as you say, research was an important aspect to the FACET project. And today we can share some of the findings from an online survey that was conducted in 2020-2021. And the purpose of the survey was to really understand what motivates entrepreneurs and what challenges they face. So, and it's really important at this stage because the challenges have to be mitigated in the future more and more. So in order to accelerate the transition towards a circular economy in the tourism sector. So the survey was conducted in the Two Seas region, specifically Norfolk in the United Kingdom, Zeeland in the Netherlands, Hauts-de-France in France, and the Belgium coast, involving a variety of tourism entrepreneurs from campsite, hotels, resorts, B&Bs, and so on. So there was a variety of stakeholders, of businesses responded to the survey. So I would like to share some of the findings in terms of, first of all, in terms of benefits that entrepreneurs see in the circular economy, which obviously motivates them to embark in such a journey, which sometimes can be challenging, right? So the benefits that we found are mostly environmental, financial, and social benefits that they see. In terms of environmental benefits, entrepreneurs seems to see key positive outcome from circular solutions, both at the global level. So the environmental benefits that circular solutions can generate at the global level, so mitigating climate change, for example, and also the local level, improving the environmental quality of the destination itself. As we know, it's really important if you want to have a long-lasting tourism destination, because in most cases, tourism activities do rely on the quality of the local natural environment. They also see the potential to reduce waste and consumption of resources. And also we have to say that the survey was conducted within the COVID-19 pandemic, that context. So we have to take in consideration, and destinations are looking to become more and more resilient. And resilience is also about consuming less, localizing the consumption of resources. This is one of the benefits that was highlighted by the respondent. Also, from the financial perspective, so we see some key findings in reduction of operating costs. We have 40% were not sure. So this, it is a key finding, but also a positive finding, because some of the entrepreneurs do see some possibility of reducing operating costs. But we can also see the need to create awareness in terms of the actual financial benefits that circular solutions can create for businesses, for entrepreneurs, so that we can improve such a figure in the future. Enhancing reputation of the organization, it was agreed by 88% of respondents. So there is a wide understanding of how circularity can improve the business image. And this is also important because consumers in the tourism sector, also in other sectors, are becoming more and more aware of sustainability, and they are looking for the sustainable experience. Then 76% of respondents did not believe that it will reduce customer satisfaction. This is a very good finding. Although we have a 24%, which they may believe that the application of circular solutions do reduce customer satisfaction. And this, I believe, should be improved in the future. And 65% respondents believe that it will attract customers. So while, again, this is a good figure, so it's more than 50%, 65%, still there is room for improvement on how circularity can attract new customers, trying to find the proper channels to more sustainable and responsible tourism. In terms of social benefits, we found that 74% of respondents are looking to adopt circular solutions to align with general trends in the sector. It's a positive figure, 74%. So it's a bit of a peer pressure. So how entrepreneurs seek to adopt circularity to apply similar sustainable solutions of other competitors in the destination. But again, more awareness can be created in terms of success stories, right? So within the destination, what benefits circularity is creating for some of the entrepreneurs so that then it can inspire more and more other tourism businesses. And again, to comply to existing regulations and future regulations. So we are seeing quite good percentage of tourism businesses that looking at circular economy also in advance in terms of to comply with future, because they are expecting more stricter regulations, environmental regulations. So they want to be prepared. So this is an overview of the benefits that we found during the research. We also focus on the challenges because, as I mentioned, it's really important to understand the challenges now and trying to mitigate them, to come up with solutions and strategies to mitigate these challenges in the future. So we found that 36% of respondents may believe that circularity can reduce profits. For example, this can happen if your circular service it's not well communicated to the customer or it's not fully accepted by the market. And so there is this fear among the, seems to be this fear among the private sector, tourism private sector. But again, I think it's also an issue of awareness. As we know, circularity it's been there for centuries, in society. But when it comes to in economic sectors, it's not many years that we are talking about circular economy. So there is still need for awareness and trying to be more transparent of the benefits that this framework, right, sustainable framework, can provide to businesses. There are some concern, 47% of respondents, about the investments, capital investments, to apply some of the solutions. And this, again, may be related also to the financing options that are out there at the moment. Need more time to implement and manage circular solutions compared to business as usual. It was agreed by 58%. And need more support in terms of knowledge, funding, and technologies. It was agreed by 67%, so it's quite of a big percentage there, which suggests that there is a need probably for an increase in knowledge flow, right, within the destination and also across destinations. A need for more funding opportunities, both for larger businesses, but also small and medium-sized enterprises. And there is a need for technologies, more awareness of some technologies. So we have the availability of technologies in terms of the appropriate at scale. Right? Some technologies are still very at a large scale, and they become not time and cost effective in utilizing them, in operating them. But also in terms of being aware of the technologies that are out there that can be implemented in a tourism businesses or in the destination. And I will conclude about the knowledge. As part of the challenges, the majority were aware about the environmental footprint of the operation for 53% of respondents. But again, we have to look at the opposite side, that 47% of respondents were not aware of the environmental footprint. That's a relevant finding from the survey. Lack of knowledge in relation to policy and regulations, 42%. I see there an improvement to be made in terms of creating awareness of the regulations that are out there, policy and regulations, so that more and more business can find solutions to comply with them. Lack of information on financial incentives, 34% have knowledge about this. Again, that seems to be quite a small percentage, and there is, again, room for improvement in knowledge among the tourism businesses, tourism entrepreneurs on the financial incentives that are out there and that can be used. And have sufficient knowledge about technologies, circular economy solutions, 45%. And again, I see here room for improvement in terms of, as I mentioned before, technologies are out there and circular solutions that can be implemented in the tourism sector. I think that's
great. Yeah, thank you, Angelo. Especially interesting, I guess, from a statistical point of view, a scientific point of view. I think the viewers and me myself would also be interested at a more, let's say, practical, anecdotal, if you will, point of view. And for that, I would like to turn to you, Arjen, because of course you are a prime example of an entrepreneur who engaged in circular practices. And I guess my question to you would be, well, what attracted you to engage in this in the first place?
Well, like Helen said before, product life cycle in leisure industry is already short and is getting shorter and shorter. Not because of technical things, but because people, customers, they get used, bored earlier. And then if you build like as usual, you have something which you have to rebuild very soon. And then it better be circular, I think.
Yes. Okay, great. And I guess on this topic, did you face then also some challenges? Because we heard a lot of challenges from Angelo's side as well.
Yes, of course. But I think what is important that you have a team, building, construction team, what maybe sees a challenge as a positive word. So that you can be innovative and you like the challenge.
Yeah. So I guess challenge would be a good word, because if you would say issue or difficulty, then it's maybe not as an optimistic outlook than whether.
Yeah, of course you bump.
A challenge,
yeah, of course you bump into some things, and then you have to have your team and see that as a nice challenge to solve that.
Yeah, and I guess that's also where the entrepreneurial character emerges, right? You look at the problem, challenge, and you try to solve it.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Excellent, thank you, Arjen. Not just Arjen, we also have digitally another entrepreneur tuning in, Nadine from Hof Christina. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad to have you here. We just heard, from Arjen, some of the reasons that attracted him to engage in circularity, some of the challenges he faced in doing so. And I would actually ask you the same. What are particular challenges you faced, and what ultimately motivated you to overcome them?
Well, let's start with motivation. Because what we found out when we started our sustainability journey, that it's not always that hard to implement sustainable solutions in your company. So for example, we started with the FACET voucher, and we started looking into our waste. And we found out that a lot of our waste came from our breakfast buffet, especially the plastic waste. And we wanted to reduce that. So we thought, what can we do? We first of all want to avoid any kind of plastic waste that we have. So let's take our cheese. We always bought our cheese in the supermarket, and it came with a lot of plastic waste. We've to solve that problem, we went to a local cheesemaker, and we started to buy our cheese in big portions, and now we slice it ourselves. And with that, we had the solution for our plastic waste, but with that, there came a lot of other solutions as well, because we started buying local. We shortened the supply chain of our products, and we have much better cheese for our guests right now. So that's something that we saw, like, okay, we take one step and it has a lot of followings. So why can we not do that with a lot of different things in our company as well? Problems that we face, for example, the paper waste that we have with printing the bills for our guests, etc., etc. And as soon as you just start with sustainability and you start doing one thing, it will get into your blood and it will start flowing everywhere. And you cannot come up with not sustainable solutions anymore for problems that you face. And the problems that we have and the challenges that we have are a lot on the level with the law. So I don't know the word for that in English right now, but there are like things that we have to face. For example, we wanted to build circular hotel suites, but we were not allowed. And we had a really nice idea. It was really nice, invented, but unfortunately, we're not allowed to build them. So we have to look into other things and see what kind of things we can do. But that are things that, are challenges. But we also think that if there comes a challenge on your way, sometimes you just need to let it rest and let it be and go focus on something else. And sometimes it will solve itself, or a few years later you can still go on with it. So it's a bit of a game.
Yeah, great. I like the way you put it, and also the examples you raise make it really tangible. I think the English word you were looking for, is it possible permit?
Yes, I think so. Yes,
permit,
thank you very much.
No worries. Great. No, thank you very much for sharing your experience. And on that note, I would actually like to give the floor to Jin, who has been patiently waiting since the beginning of this particular item, and who is going to, conduct the effort of trying to synthesize some of the things that have been said here today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Lucian, for inviting me to discuss this particular interesting topic. I think it's very great to hear this inspirational story and effort in adopting circular solutions by Aaron and Nareen. This story resonates very well with my memories of working on FACET project for the past 3 years. Our teams have met, interact, and also interviewed many tourism businesses and business owners and the entrepreneurs and their employees. Based on those interactions and also based on our survey that explained by Angelo earlier, we identify through shared aspect among the circular entrepreneurs, and we summarize this into a simple framework. We call it 3M framework. So the first M is meaning. We found that entrepreneurs and their employees seek and understand the meaning of these transitions, a meaning of these transitions from business as usual to a more sustainable business with circular operations. They try to find why they want to do it. So they derive their visions, their passions, based on their understanding about the challenges the global community is facing. For example, global warming, climate change, plastic pollutions, and also the impact on mankind and the natural environment. In addition to this logical understanding about the benefits of circular operations and be sustainable, I think one of the key aspects is many of them derive the energy by the calling in their heart to take actions. Their love for nature environments, the love for their next generations. There's also so great compassion about fellow human beings who suffer the negative impact of climate change and extreme weather conditions, whether you see it through TV or they personally experience it in some places that human beings are suffering. So this push them to say that they need to take actions, and the sources of energy make them be able to take initiative, that many initiatives that we have heard today, and the determinations to pursue this change, to face challenge, and to keep the balance of trade-off between short-term commercial gains and long-term circularity and sustainability. So this is very admiring, and this is very inspirational for me as not an entrepreneur. But when I heard this story, they have built resilience to face all those challenges, overcome many difficulties in order to change their operation. And the second M, and this just now we heard from two entrepreneurs and that talk about the second part of it. This is the mastery of the skill, the ability and capacity to lead and to build their organization capability, knowledge, and skill. Those are critical success factors in their journey of transitions to circularity. They have prepared themselves and their organization with good knowledge and skill, knowledge about the impact of their operations, for example, the carbon footprints, the elements in their businesses that are not sustainable, and also they actively pursue solutions that help you to have a more sustainable holiday. So, and also they communicate with their supplier, with their customers, and the wider stakeholder about innovative circular solutions that they have adopted. This is also one of the very key elements in accelerating the adoptions of circular economy in the tourism sector. And last, the third M is the membership of communities. We found that many entrepreneurs who are successful in their transitions to circularity build on an extensive network. They become a part of the community that care about being more sustainable. The community which share knowledge, experience, information, and passions. Many entrepreneurs begin this journey by joining events on circular economies and sustainability. For example, those organized by HJAC, by the local university. They connect with actors along their value chain and co-create innovative solutions. We also see many examples of SME joint force. They form joint purchase alliance and making circular solution work. Some circular solution might not be viable for one business to adopt. Collectively, with this joint purchase alliance, they can create sizable markets. The circular solution will become more efficient and has a lower cost. So many of them, when they participate in this type of community, they are not passive participations, but also they assert their influence, they lead the community forward in terms of circularity and sustainability. So to summarize the 3M framework, summarize our observations and our learning from interaction with businesses and entrepreneurs in the tourism sector, that they are the pioneer. They are leading this particular movement.
Excellent, thank you, Jin, for synthesizing those findings, and I guess that provides us with a good good opportunity, I must say, to bridge this with the next item on today's agenda, namely entrepreneurs experimenting with circularity. So, speaking of experimenting with circularity, I would like to welcome a new member at our table. Agreet van Maldegem from the University of Applied Sciences. Welcome, happy to have you here. I'll get back to you in a second. First of all, I would like to share that one of the main things that, or one of the several things that we did in this project was connect local entrepreneurs with experts such as engineers who would enable the entrepreneurs to engage in circular solutions, also at a maybe more technical level. And on that note, I would like to ask first a question to you, Helen. What kind of companies participated in this and for what particular issues?
Well, in the Netherlands, we had a variety of pilots and from several tourism entrepreneurs. You can think about campsites varying from small to larger campsites. And then we also had this beach pavilions, restaurants, hotels, day attraction. And in the end, I think we helped about 20 entrepreneurs in Zealand only. Okay. And of course, we have the Belgium as well.
Yes, great. And was that for specific issues, more technical issues? Or variety?
Yeah, we had a variety of questions as well. So, for example, I have waste from orange peels or coffee grounds. What can I do? Can I reuse it? Or because normally it's residual waste and it gets burnt in the end, but can I make it a source again? So can I reuse it? Then we had this hotel looking into is water. Can I reuse water and use it for my drying machine, for example, or just flush my toilets with? And then we also had a lot of questions on building. So instead of this normal cottage, can I make a design for a circular building?
Okay.
And also aiming, of course, at energy and biodiversity. So it hits several teams.
Yeah. So by the sounds of it, I guess the experts or the engineers would also help them maybe think outside the box.
Exactly.
Think about things that are there. Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned the Belgian pilots as well, hinting at Avi, who of course is coming from Belgium, is more focused on Belgian pilots, whereas you, Helen, more on the Dutch pilots here in the neighborhood in Zeeland. Going to you, Avi, what was the focus on entrepreneurs in Belgium? And do you see a lot of differences with the ones that Helen discussed?
Yeah, well, we had 18 pilots in Belgium, and 2 of them were a cooperation with different parties, but 16 of them was coaching of individual businesses. And these are hotels, restaurants, campsites, also a youth hostel. And we see a lot of questions, but they mainly focus on energy. So they have questions on waste and water, but they also have a lot of questions on energy. And that's not surprising because of the increasing prices now for energy.
Yeah.
So thanks to the project FACET, we could give the businesses or the entrepreneurs, they could have several sessions with the engineer, and they could dive into the business and look for the right solutions for that business. And they had a lot of questions. For instance, I want solar panels, but how much do you need solar panels? And do you need a battery for storage or not? Or can you heat your sanitary water with it? Or the heating and cooling is also very important in hotels. But can you do that without using gas? And how can you do it? Or what is the first step for my business? Is it first to isolate my building, or can I implement some technologies? And the engineer could really help them to implement it. And there was also the financial question. How much does it cost? Estimations for that, but also what are the payback times? Which decisions can I take? How can I, which choices do I have to make as an entrepreneur? So that's very useful. And one of the pilots was Park Hotel de Panne. And I had an interview with Kathleen, the owner, and we have a video. So
yes,
you can watch the video.
I'm glad you mentioned the video. I'll be happy to share the video of Park Hotel de Panne.
Thanks.
Mijn naam is Kathleen de Vink. Ik ben zaakvoerder van het Parkhotel in de Panne. We zijn al een aantal jaren met duurzaamheid bezig en we hebben deelgenomen aan het FACET-project omdat we advies wouden over hoe we beste zonnepanelen en laadpalen konden installeren. We hebben een coach gekregen die dus een aantal vragen heeft opgesteld. Die vragen hebben we opgestuurd naar verschillende leveranciers en op basis van de antwoorden hebben we een keuze gemaakt uit de beste leverancier voor het plaatsen van onze zonnepanelen. Voor de laadpalen hebben we dat ook gedaan, omdat er een aantal aspecten aan bod komen waar je zelf niet aan denkt. De meeste laadpalen werken met abonnement. En wij hebben eigenlijk bewust gekozen voor laadpalen zonder abonnement. Dus wij hebben onze eigen kaarten en hierdoor valt de abonnementskost weg. Ook hebben we een slim systeem erin gestoken, zodat de auto's enkel laden wanneer dat er niet veel verbruik is in het hotel. Dat noemen ze load balance systeem. Het project FACET heeft ons geholpen om dankzij het onafhankelijk advies de juiste beslissing te nemen met de coach voor de aankoop van onze zonnepanelen en de laadpaal.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that video with us, Evie. My understanding is also that there were two particular pilots where different parties had to work together. How did you manage to get them all around the table?
We had two pilots with two municipalities, De Haan and Ostende, and they were about coastal waste management. So you need a lot of parties to do that, and you have to bring them together. And a very important role of the project of FACET was to facilitate the interviews with the different stakeholders and to have an independent party to do so. For example, the municipality De Haan, they worked together with the businesses on the beach, like the beach clubs and the businesses who rent the seats to the tourists. And they want to work together with them on waste, but it's not the municipality that brings obligations to them, but it's talking to each other and come to solutions. And that's a very important role of FACET. And by doing this process, it's really a process, it takes some time to do that. But by doing this process, they had very ambitious agreements. For instance, there were 10 businesses on the beach who connected to a pressure pipeline for their wastewater. They also have a framework with agreements on waste management with all businesses on the beaches. And they did a campaign towards tourists, but also they wanted to reward the businesses for the efforts they are doing. And they did so by organizing the Eco Beach Awards. So, very nice story.
It sounds like a very nice story taking place in Belgium. And from Belgium, I would like to make the move to the Netherlands again, specifically to you, Agreet, in your role working for the University of Applied Sciences. I was wondering, what was the role of the university in entrepreneurs experimenting with circularity?
So we also took a research role. But what was special is that we joined forces with the coaches, with the experts, working with the entrepreneurs in the field. And in that way, developing, generating knowledge as we were doing circularity, so in the field. And we looked at tools. We tried to understand what tools were particularly helpful at what point of time. We tried to identify best practices and use them to inspire others, to attract others. And we tried to draw some generic lessons of interest to others. And all of this was summarized in the white papers that we have available. So maybe, for example, the tools. There's a lot of tools available, widely available on the internet, but it's very difficult to understand of the wealth that is available there, what tool is useful at what point of time. And of course, you don't want to waste your time on the wrong tool. So we worked side by side with the coaches and the experts to see what works best. And that helped us to make them fit for purpose and to develop guidelines using them. But also we looked at certain topics like the ones that Jin and Angelo already commented on, motivations and the benefits. But we particularly focused on how circular initiatives touch upon the business models of the entrepreneurs. So, for example, entrepreneurs looking to separate certain waste streams, fractions of their waste streams in the big bulk of organic waste, for example. We try to understand how they could do that, how they could organize for that, how they could motivate their personnel to do that, what capabilities or new capabilities were needed in that process. We watched them develop new partnerships, maybe start to engage in joint purchasing instead of doing it alone. And obviously, of course, we looked at the revenue models. We looked at how does that change the structure of cost and revenues. And all of this was collected in infographics, sort of summarizing the business cases. And at this point, we tried to identify patterns across all those different business cases. and see, if we can bring them together in an inspiring story for others, a new generation of entrepreneurs yet to come. And that will help to increase the pace because, in my opinion, we need to step up and go a little bit more quickly in this process.
Yeah, great. And I guess, there's a lot in what you said. I think one of the things I can imagine, circularity is quite overwhelming, all these things, all this information out there. So it's great to hear that you helped, let's say, the pilots side by side to filter information, to select what's useful at a maybe more practical level, but at the same time, on your concluding note as well, at an inspirational level, aspirational level, moving forward. So yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Agit. And on that note, I would like to share a video from Arjen. I'd like to share that now.
Ik ben Arjen Brinkman, samen met mijn zus Marijke, eigenaar van de Paardenkreek. En wij hebben meegedaan met het project van FACET omdat we het heel interessant vinden om meningen uit te wisselen met andere mensen. Ook iets van je eigen kennis te delen en niet onbelangrijk het financiële aspect van de subsidies die eraan vasthangen. Nou, binnen dit project hebben wij de Zeeuwse dijksuites gerealiseerd. We hadden hier een dijklichaam en we hadden ook nog ruimte om daar wat op te bouwen. En toen hebben we min of meer in de dijk hebben we volledig circulaire woningen, verblijven gerealiseerd. Ik heb geleerd dat het belangrijk is om met een team te werken wat de mogelijkheden en de uitdagingen ziet als een positief iets. Want je komt echt wel veel uitdagingen tegen als je niet helemaal standaard gaat bouwen. Ik heb ook gezien dat je flexibel moet zijn, omdat je moet gewoon constant weer je aanpassen aan dingen die toch anders zijn dan dat je van tevoren denkt.
Great. Welcome back, everyone. Arjen, good to see your video. Good to have you here again as well. I know I asked you this already in the previous session the previous item regarding the challenges you faced. I'm going to ask it again, but more specifically, could you tell me perhaps what your biggest challenge was, if you had to pick one?
The biggest challenge, well, when you have the team like I told you, then it's certainly okay. But one of the challenges was because it's a dike and we didn't want to do pile drilling because of the circularity. Well, it's very hard to get everything stable and as much as possible into the dike. So that was not standard, of course.
Yes, yeah. So also I guess at the technical level, hard to...
Most of it was technical.
Yes, yeah. Great, interesting. On the topic of challenges, is there any other thoughts on this? Are there other challenges that any of you can think of that you've encountered throughout this process?
Maybe on the level of the customers, I think.
Yeah.
That I remember that in one of the voucher programs, we were looking for how can we bring this message to the customers, and also I was about to say persuade them to become more circular, but it's more about seduce them to become more circular and to bring the message across to them. So I remember that as not particularly a big challenge, but something that you need to think of. And
that is not only for the entrepreneur, but also really thinking about how to get the customers on board, which might not always be as evident. Is that something you can relate to as well? When you look at your customers, are they easily on board on this topic, or?
Yeah, well, we thought it has to be a nice accommodation anyway, and we give the customers some information, and then we have like extras which they can take if they want to, because we don't want to press it too much. It has to be a nice accommodation for everybody, but we hope, of course, that there are customers that really like circular or green accommodations. Yeah, but we don't really focus on it.
Yeah. It's not the focal point. It's not, you don't necessarily impose it, but indirectly it might have that effect. Oh, okay, excellent. I think on that note, it's a good opportunity to move on to the next item. In the next item, I would like to discuss about working towards reducing waste. And there's particularly a partner in the UK, in North Norfolk County Council, who's experimenting in this field, and where essentially they engage in different activities focused on the reduction of street litter. And I would like to share a video on this topic.
Hello, my name is Jackie Zavala. I am the Senior Project Officer at Norfolk County Council. Today, I will be speaking about the waste reduction initiatives that Norfolk has done as part of the FACET project. First, I want to give some context for everyone who doesn't know much about Norfolk, but we're situated on the east side of England, highlighted in the red box. And if you zoom into the area, you can see on the east coast of Norfolk, here is where we are working with SMEs, Great Yarmouth Borough Council, and visitors to deliver our waste reduction initiatives. We focus our work in the coastal destinations of Hemsby, Great Yarmouth, and Gorleston. This area sees 3.9 million visitors per year and 1.1 million visitors who stay overnight or multiple nights. So now that you have some context about the location we're working in, I'm going to move on to the waste reduction initiatives. In Great Yarmouth and Hemsby, we have installed over 100 lockdown frames and bin enclosures of different sizes, doubling the capacity of the Great Yarmouth seafront. A large part of reducing the amount of waste collections on the seafront was the introduction of recycling. They're all branded with simple messaging on what to put in the bins, and the recycling bins are fitted with locks and apertures to try and reduce contamination. We're still exploring different ways to reduce contamination rates in the recycling bins, but we have seen some improvements with the locks and apertures. So this picture shows our large bin enclosures, and these are our lockdown frames. So again, same messaging, very simple on what to put inside the bins. So moving on to less conventional public waste reduction initiatives, we have the bottle ships and the smart bins. The FACET bottle ships, which you see on the left, are functional art pieces that are sensitive to the local history and culture. We installed 3, one in Hemsby, Great Yarmouth, and Gorleston. They are a large capacity recycling bank. They're very engaging and in really visible areas. So the smart bins, which are on the right, are innovative compacting bins that increase capacity using solar-powered compactors. These were only installed in Hemsby and are wrapped with the same simple messaging as the other bins on the previous slide. And what we found from all of these public-facing waste reduction initiatives is that these innovative bins, the bottle ship and smart bins, have had less contamination than our regular bins, even with the clear messaging. So this helps to show that gamification and making recycling interesting can help the public make the right choices about how they dispose of their waste and ultimately reduce the amount of waste which goes to landfill. So another one of our initiatives to reduce waste is the Hemsby Cup. So the Hemsby Cup is our initiative where we've been working with businesses to reduce their use of single-use plastic waste. We worked with 7 businesses and distributed 1,000 cups between them. The way that this scheme worked was that you could buy a hot drink and pay a £2 deposit to get the cup. And then you could go wander around, and then after you were done, you could go to any of the other participating businesses and drop off the cup, and then you would get your money back. So this pilot really relied on the strong community that was already built in Hemsby. It also relied on the geographic closeness of the businesses. We learned that we really needed to market this pilot, and we did struggle a bit to properly train all staff members who are seasonal workers, so that way they could suggest the cups to customers, especially when it was really busy. After feedback from the businesses, I think that if this could be done again, it would probably be a cup that customers could keep as a souvenir, but use throughout their stay. We also relied heavily on our local champion, who had a strong relationship with all the businesses and had an understanding of our political constraints and our goals as well. So in terms of lessons learned, you really need to make sure these things are visible. And you also need to make sure you have a local champion, because their participation is key in getting other businesses involved. So we also tried to address food waste, and we did this in 2 different ways. So first, we installed 2 community fridges, one in Hemsby and one in Great Yarmouth. Although the Hemsby fridge is in a smaller location and the donations aren't as consistent, the community fridge has not needed to throw out any food to date. It's all gone out to the community. The Great Yarmouth fridge has boasted that they've diverted 685 kilograms of food waste just in September. So really good things are happening with these fridges, and the food is going out into the community. Early on, we also had interest from businesses to learn more about composting. We had 6 businesses which were audited, and we provided 6 composters and 3 wormeries to businesses. And these businesses were also trained on how to properly compost. The final waste reduction initiative is a social enterprise that we set up called Precious Plastic East. They're a grassroots plastic collecting, processing, and manufacturing workshop based in Great Yarmouth. They have collected plastic waste from 25 businesses already and have already created several products. So the images you see on the slide are all different products that they've already created. Some of these are out for public sale. The beach comb that you see there was actually made from waste that they found, of beach toys that they found during a beach cleanup. They have partnered with other organizations as well to make different products, and all of these are now on sale. So we're really excited about the future of this social enterprise and what they will continue to do in the future. That's it. Thank you. If you have any questions about any of the waste reduction initiatives that I talked about today, please feel free to email me at the email that you see there below, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Jackie, for yet another insightful presentation. I would also like to remind the viewers that there is the opportunity to ask questions in the chat box. So if you have questions about Jackie's presentation or any other topic, please do feel free to ask questions, and then we can perhaps take them up here on the table and discuss them with you. I would like to move on to a next topic regarding the building of a bio-based accommodation. One of our Dutch pilots was in fact engaged with building a bio-based accommodation, and joined me at the table is Maarten den Hollander, who is behind the building of a bio-based accommodation. I see you've brought a lot of prompts. What was it called again?
A mock-up.
A mock-up. You brought a mock-up. So you're going to tell us all about this bio-based accommodation. I'm excited to hear more about it. But first, I will introduce or share with the viewers a video which captures this as well.
Mijn naam is Mariska Polderman en ik werk als projectmanager bij HZ University of Applied Sciences. In FACET hebben we met Kenniscentrum Ondernemen en Innoveren en Kenniscentrum Kusttoerisme onderzoek gedaan naar duurzame bedrijfsmodellen. En het lectoraat Biobased Bouwen heeft een biocirculaire accommodatie gebouwd. In FACET hebben we verschillende tools en modellen ontwikkeld. Zo hebben we vanuit literatuurstudie algemene modellen ontwikkeld voor waardeketens, gezamenlijke inkoop en samenwerkingsverbanden in circulaire economie. En deze algemene modellen hebben we getest en gevalideerd in sessies. Met alle projectpartners hebben we een website ontwikkeld waar de resultaten van het project te vinden zijn. Zoals bijvoorbeeld bedrijfsmodellen die we hebben ontwikkeld. Deze zijn voor ondernemers om hen te helpen bij het vinden van oplossingen. Ook hebben we een whitepaper ontwikkeld voor lokale overheden om toeristische bedrijven te ondersteunen bij het circulair ondernemen.
Ik ben Maarten den Hollander. Ik ben docent aan de opleiding bouwkunde aan de HZ University of Applied Science. Ik ben projectleider binnen FACET en ik ben verantwoordelijk voor de bouw van het Living Lab waar we nu staan. Dat is een Living Lab waarin wij biobased en circulaire materialen toepassen om te laten zien aan de toeristische sector wat ermee kan. Ja, we zijn een gebouw aan het maken met 2 bouwlagen waarbij we de functie wonen, die voor de toeristische sector natuurlijk belangrijk is, laten zien. Maar ook de functie verblijf, dus voor meetings bijvoorbeeld, vergaderingen, dat soort dingetjes. Nou, biobased materialen zijn materialen die door de natuur hernieuwbaar zijn, snel. En circulaire materialen, dat zijn bijvoorbeeld materialen die hier op de gevelbekleding zijn toegepast. Dat zijn houten gevelbekledingdelen die uit de container gered zijn van andere projecten en hier toegepast worden in het gebouw. Nou, wat ik hier heb is eigenlijk een monster van een opbouw van een HSB-element. En wat je hier ziet is dat er folies zijn toegepast. En folies die zijn nodig om de isolatie te beschermen tegen condensatie. Maar bij biobased materialen is dat minder nodig. Biobased materialen kunnen namelijk zelf uitdampen. Dus ook in dit pand hebben we geen folies toegepast in de gevel. Hier in Zeeland hebben we een hele slechte grondlaag. We moeten diep funderen, soms wel 10 meter. En dat is een probleem, want vaak gebruiken we daar betonnen palen voor en die kunnen we niet weer uit de grond verwijderen. Dus we hebben hier gekozen voor een stalen fundering. Dat zijn palen van 1 meter lang, die schroef je erin en die kun je er ook weer uitschroeven. Dat is ook weer circulair. En wat ook wel bijzonder is, dat het gebouw in zijn geheel te demonteren en later weer ergens anders her te bouwen. Dat maakt het een stuk flexibeler. Daarnaast is het ook zo dat het gebouw aan zich, de begane grond en de verdiepingsplattegrond, die zijn ook flexibel indeelbaar. Dus in het laagseizoen kun je er 2 vergaderruimtes in maken en in het hoogseizoen kun je er bijvoorbeeld 2 appartementen van maken. Zo creëer je veel meer omzet en veel meer waarde. Nou, de lineaire economie, dat is wel duidelijk, daar kunnen we niet mee door. We moeten daarmee stoppen, we moeten naar de circulaire economie overstappen. En dit soort materialen en dit soort projecten die dragen bij aan de bewustwording dat het kan. We zijn er niet ver vanaf, we moeten het alleen nog maar doen. En niet alleen de toeristische sector, we willen ook echt de bouwsector in de regio aanspreken. En daarnaast ook de professionals van de toekomst, de studenten.
Great, well, great to have everyone back, especially you, Maarten. Especially interesting to see how this bio-based building is actually, in effect, taking place. And I can imagine that building this was not just you building it. Yep. You had a lot of partners working together, collaborating with partners to make this happen. Could you say a little bit about who these partners are and how this emerged?
Of course. First, thanks for having us here. What we try to do with this pilot is demonstrate the viability of circular buildings within the tourism sector. We did this through combination of research on one hand and education on the other hand. So we began with asking students to come up with a design for a biocircular accommodation. And also they investigated some building methods and also some building materials to use. And this was guided by me as a member of the lectorate bio-based building, but also by some parties that are working within the circular economy right now, that are experienced within. And after we had that design, we asked a few local touristic entrepreneurs to give us some feedback on the design. So we gained a lot of insight on, well, how should we look at certain design aspects. And for the execution, we only used local parties, local experts. For example, Rothuizen Architecten, Thijs en Goedberlet, VKP en Van de Velde. These are some examples of the subcontractors that contributed to the building. And also in the future, we would like students to do the day-to-day running of this building, because we want to use it, of course, and students can be involved in that also. My colleague within the lectoraat, Phoebus Panigerakis, will also do some work in the future. He will monitor some technical aspects of the building, of the construction, and also he will develop a business case for biocircular accommodation.
Yeah, excellent. And I see you have a lot of material here with you. I assume these are materials used to build this. Could you tell us a little bit more about these?
Yeah, of course. I won't get into some parts too deep because they're already shown in the video, but I would like to start off with saying that the construction, the walls and the floors are all constructed with a timber frame. And this timber frame is insulated with wood fiber. And wood fiber has a very important aspect. It can self-regulate damp. In a building, damp transport takes place from the warm sides to the cold side, so from indoor to outdoor. And with the old-fashioned insulation materials, you have the problem of condensation. They can't evaporate. So we use foils within the construction. I also mentioned it in the video. And in this construction, we don't need it. And this creates a real good indoor climate, which is, of course, beneficial to the clients of the entrepreneurs. So all the materials we used are either bio-based and or circular, which is, of course, important. I would like to briefly mention that bio-based materials are materials that can be produced by nature. So is oil. It can be produced by nature, but it takes too much time. And so this doesn't count as a bio-based material. Wood is a good example. What I have here is a poplar root. Poplar roots grows in this area, and it's also harvested here. And at this point, we put it on ships and we take it to China to make matches out of it. And we think it's a real shame because we can use this as a good building material. So what we'll do with this material, we'll form panels on the ground floor. And in these panels, we'll create an exhibition. So all the, interested parties, mainly touristic entrepreneurs, they can come to the bio-based circular building to look at the materials of tomorrow. We think poplar is a good example. Also, what I have here is a mycelium composite flooring. Mycelium is the roots of a mushroom, so to say. And we can also already use it as flooring. So a way better product than we are using now, the linoleum, which isn't all too bad, but this is better, I think. Also, what I have with me is a few examples of a bio-laminate. And I think these are real nice panels for example, for your kitchen. And we want to show with these materials, it can be done already. These are the alternatives for the old-fashioned materials we're using right now.
Great, so it is possible today.
It is, yeah, very well.
On that note, do you have some tips that you could share with entrepreneurs regarding, circular building?
Yeah, gladly. I would like to start with concrete goals. That's really important. As an entrepreneur, you need concrete goals. For example, if you want to build an accommodation, be sure to mention to yourself, to the contractors, does all material need to be circular? Or, for example, only the non-constructive materials? Because that makes a lot of difference within your process. So be sure to set concrete goals. It's mentioned before, you need partners around you that are experts. Provided that you yourself as an entrepreneur are not an expert, you need those people around you, the people you can rely on within this process. If you're choosing for a vapor open construction, it meets some difficulties. It might meet some difficulties. In the Netherlands, for example, the regulations are not yet fit for vapor open buildings. What this means is that we use a ventilation system with an overcapacity, because within a vapor open building, you don't need to ventilate as much as in a vapor closed building that we probably all live in. So this is something you need to address in advance. And if you would like to ventilate less, make sure to go to the municipality for when you apply for your permits, and make sure that it's possible within your region. Also an important aspect of circularity is the materials. Not all materials are widely available. So if you are going to build in a circular way, make sure that you start gathering the materials early on. And I'm not talking about weeks, but maybe months or even a year, depending, of course, on the size of the building. And also for this, you will need the local parties that demolish the buildings around you and see what can be used in your building. And also in this building method, we saw that you can build it in a very short period of time. This was built in, well, I'd say a month, so which is very positive for a touristic entrepreneur, because it doesn't take too much time of your campsite. And last, and I think this is the most important aspect, it's not rocket science. I mean, if we can do it, everyone can. It's real not that difficult. As I mentioned in the video, we just need to do it.
Yeah, great. I think that's a beautiful concluding message. Everyone can do it. It's possible. Now you know you can do it in 1 month. You can put a building out there. So thank you for sharing those really concrete and useful tips for entrepreneurs and beyond. So thank you again, Maarten. And on that note, I would like to move to the final session of today, which, not to end on a gloomy note, is about looking at the future. Looking at the future, of course, beyond this project and how we can go forward from here. So, of course, we learned a lot during the project of FACET. A lot of lessons were learned. A lot of recommendations can be drawn from this as well. And I'm going to share with you a visualization of these recommendations. And start with a video bumper on that note as well. Great. So as I mentioned, I am sharing here with you a visualization of concrete recommendations that you can engage with. And perhaps, Angelo, if I can ask you, first of all, what key actions can be taken by destination stakeholders to enhance entrepreneurs' motivation based on what you see here as well?
Of course. Thanks for the question again, Lucian. What we have learned throughout the FACET project, and also based on the survey that was presented in a previous section, that it's really beneficial to reinforce and further integrate circular economy principles in destination planning. How do we do that? You need, obviously, as we have talked before, involvement from the different stakeholders, public sector, DMOs, destination management organizations, trade associations, and entrepreneurs, in order to, in participatory processes, to understand what are the challenges they face and what are the opportunities. Because ultimately, what you want in a destination is to capitalize on the opportunities in order to mitigate the challenges. So there is still a need to create the destination strategies with circularity. It's happening around the world, but again, this needs to be accelerated. And it's, as I mentioned before, it's helped by the COVID-19 pandemic in a way, because it made us rethink what sustainability is and what we need to do in the future to become further resilient and manage to cope with shocks That can be a pandemic, a natural event. So yeah, destination management strategies with circularity and at its core, it's really important. Also, as we look into the future, we need to focus more on the regulations. So being able to trying to eliminate policy barriers that we may have at the moment for certain circular solutions, taxation barriers, but also to introduce incentives, especially for small, medium enterprises in tourism, which are those ones that may face more challenges in terms of finances. So trying to find funds for circular solutions. So that the regulatory aspect need to be addressed more and more in the future. Again, it's happening, but there is a lot of work to do, again, in the upcoming years if we want to accelerate that transition. Also, it's really important to share excellent stories of circular implementation in the tourism sector. So what benefits are circularity it's generating for the entrepreneurs, and share these success stories with other tourism entrepreneurs, so they can be inspired, and also they can learn on how to mitigate some of the challenges that they are facing. The technical barriers that we also spoke before in a previous session, again, there is a lot of work to be done in the future to address them, to work with the entrepreneurs, understand these barriers, and provide, create the appropriate platforms and situations where entrepreneurs can learn how to mitigate these barriers, and how they can get support from other destination stakeholders. I think these are some of the key aspects that should be addressed in the future as we move ahead, and we want to accelerate the transition in tourism, in the tourism sector. And again, we can also learn from other industries. There is a lot that we can learn from other sectors that may be more ahead in terms of circularity, and learn from other sectors so that we can understand better how to move ahead in tourism.
So moving ahead requires strong collaboration.
Strong collaborations within the tourism sector, but also multi-sectoral collaboration.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Angelo. And on that note, I would like to ask you, Helen, why was it important to also give a recommendation on, let's say, the financial stimulants to implement circularity?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of pilots in these last 3 years exactly, in which experts have guided entrepreneurs towards circular solutions to implement. And then you have the solutions, but then the next stage, of course, is implementation, for which you need financing. And this could vary from small amounts to larger amounts. But indeed, you might need external financing, and then you know that financing institutions exactly do play an important role in accelerating this transition towards a circular economy. So, in my opinion, circularity should be an integral component of their financing instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. So finance is not something that can be overlooked here naively, let's say. So that's why financial institutions can play a big role, but maybe not just financial institutions. Angelo, I know that you are also engaged with alternative ways for financing circularity.
Yes. First of all, I think, of course, financing institutions, they play a key role in the transition, and there is a need to adapt more and more the existing financing options to circularity, to the requirement of circular solutions, and especially to also to small-scale circular solutions. Sometimes you have the barriers of accessing to funds because circular solutions are not large-scale. Right? So for small scale, but we have looked throughout the FACET project also at crowdfunding, reward-based crowdfunding, and its potential to be used in the circular economy in tourism. There are a few examples out there, and what it meant is that tourism business can pre-sell a service and a product that can be one night stay, a dinner, for an initial small amount of money. So we all know how crowdfunding works, but how can we apply it to circularity? And we also launched the idea of a destination-based crowdfunding platform that can be targeted specifically to tourists and communities that can learn about the circular initiatives that are taking place in the destinations, and they can help funds these initiatives, and then they can learn, and also businesses can learn from each other because they will all campaign for certain amount of money, but there will be a knowledge sharing within this platform as well. So we see that there may be a potential also to move ahead with crowdfunding, reward-based crowdfunding, and for a circular economy in tourism.
Yeah, very clear. And I think also in all of this, again, collaboration is key. But on the topic of collaboration, of course, it can mean a lot of things. It is also important to have not just any stakeholder, but the right stakeholders. Perhaps, Helen, could you say something about why it's so important to have the right stakeholders to participate in all of this?
Yeah, I think for circularity, the transition you cannot make alone. And I think several of us have already mentioned it, as change has to be done in the entire chain. So you do need everyone, all stakeholders, to participate in this transition.
Yeah, great. And sticking with you, what was a tip or a recommendation from entrepreneurs who participated in this project to other entrepreneurs? Let's say, what was a common lesson learned in all of this?
First of all, I would like to speak about the business case, because as Angelo just mentioned, sharing knowledge is very important. So we initially said from the start of the project, all knowledge gained has to be shared. So all tools, all models, all business cases will be available on our website, which you will mention later on. And then from each pilot, we have this like 2-page infographic saying, okay, what has been done? What is the lesson learned? Who did you work with? What was your goal? And what have you achieved or will you going to achieve? So please do know this will be shared. And then some common tips, besides all tips that has been mentioned during the last presentations, is please start now. Cooperation is very important as well. And as I said before, you need the entire chain to make the transition. And then don't see waste as waste, but see waste as the source.
Beautiful concluding message, Helen. Thank you very much. And on that note, I would actually like to thank everyone that joined us here today, because we have indeed reached the end of our session here today. And perhaps from my side, I could provide a concluding note in all of this, because of course we were talking here about circularity. But circularity requires also a form of responsibility. And the question here is, well, what does responsibility mean? And I would like to use a philosophical understanding here of responsibility in the sense of responsibility, the ability to respond. We just heard Helen say, you can do something, you can start something. Maarten also mentioned this. It is not so difficult. You have, by virtue of your birth, the capacity to take action and to respond to the challenges you and I and all of us face here today. There was a lot of information, hopefully today. At the same time, I would like to say it is somewhat a preview, because there is so much more. Helen referred to this already. I'm going to refer it more explicitly. FACETwiki.eu. I repeat, FACETwiki.eu, where you can find a lot of information on the topic of FACET and on ways for you to engage in circularity. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to the next occasion.